So I've actually been looking for an excuse to play Battlefield 2042 for some time now, and just recently Season 1 came up with an update, and also in even bigger news, it's gone from having mostly negative reviews on Steam to mixed reviews, so big step up. And I've also seen a lot of people saying that they're really enjoying it. Now that could just be my somewhat biased Twitter feed that I'm looking at and things like that, but I've seen certain people seem to be enjoying it, and I've seen the phrase Battlefield is back dillied around as well. So I wanted to go in and take a look at it after my pretty scathing Season 1 review when that came out. Now, I should say that prior to Season 1, and I did mention this in the video I did on it, I did have actually secretly kind of high hopes for the game because I hadn't played it in ages. I knew they'd put a load of patches out. I thought, oh yeah, I bet they're going to have fixed like a decent amount of this. I reckon this could be pretty good secretly. And then I ended up being pretty disappointed because a lot of the issues, obviously, I should have known this, that a lot of the big issues were still there. Now going into the game this time, I definitely didn't have those high expectations. And would you believe it? I bloody ended up enjoying it a decent amount. Now that's certainly not saying that the game doesn't have any issues. All the things that I highlighted in my Season 1 review video, there's still issues with the game. I think just this time, now that I wasn't so distracted by those things and disappointed after having built up my expectations, I think this time I was able to focus a bit more on the gunplay, and that's definitely what I've been most interested in. I've actually been pretty obsessed over the last few days about trying to get better at the game, which is, in my opinion, a pretty good sign. It means it's not just absolutely terrible. I'm not sure how long that obsession is going to last because, yeah, playing the game, I've been kind of thinking, yeah, what's the longevity of this with the maps they've currently got and also the lack of weapons. And I'm not going to talk too much about the issues because I spoke a lot about that in the previous video. But what I do want to add at this point is that stating that, dare I say, I have been enjoying Battlefield 2042. And I have, to be honest, I have been enjoying it. It feels a bit dirty, I'm not going to lie, because there's so many decisions that I just don't agree with Battlefield 2042. So saying you enjoy the game, kind of, I don't know, part of my mind thinks you're approving of what they've done, and I certainly am not doing that. I just kind of wanted to give a relatively, it's definitely not going to be fully objective because I'll get too emotional about what the hell they've done with 2042, but a decently objective point of view of where the game is now and maybe where people are coming from, where they're saying they're really enjoying the game again currently. Now with that being said, I do reckon I'd take a pretty decent guess that a fair number of the people that are saying Battlefield is back haven't played the older Battlefields for some time, because it's pretty easy when you don't play them to remember how good they are. Fortunately enough, I played like Battlefield 5, Battlefield 4, Battlefield 3 recently, and then when you go to 2042, it's kind of easy to see the difference in Battlefield and the gap that there is between the really solid ones and 2042. But if you haven't been playing those for a while and you've been playing 2042 and all of a sudden you're getting moments which kind of feel like Battlefield moments, let's say, I can easily see how you start to think, you know what, Battlefield's back on track. This is what Battlefield games are like. This is the good part of Battlefield games, without actually remembering, kind of forgetting a little bit of what the actually good elements of Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4 and stuff like that are. But what 2042 has going for it, and I don't know if this is just me, I'm sure it's not, but it's the latest game. Sometimes you just want to play the latest thing in a series. Playing the older versions, I don't know, it feels a little bit, occasionally, I mean, I'm no stranger to playing older games. If you see this channel, I play plenty of older games, but occasionally playing older ones, you kind of feel like you don't want to put too much time into getting good at it because you know there's something else that's newer out there. And now maybe that's me just being the ultimate consumer and just like wanting the newest thing and stuff like that. But yeah, part of me, I kind of want to always see what the newest thing's doing and trying to, if I really want to invest time in getting good at something, I want to make sure it's the newest thing as opposed to just staying stuck behind on an older version. So that's been part of the appeal to me to go back to 2042. It's kind of why I've been looking for an excuse. And also a massive one, and I can't really wrap my head around this one, is just the lack of competition for a Battlefield style game. The biggest competition for 2042, if you want to play that style of game, is actually previous Battlefields, and Battlefield 5 numbers are definitely surpassing, quite significantly surpassing 2042 numbers, so it's pretty clear that that Battlefield community don't really have anywhere to go. Now some of them might be going to things like Hell Let Loose and Squad, more hardcore style of games, or maybe Warzone on the other hand, or Battle Royale stuff. But if you want to play that style of game, there's so little competition, so much so that the biggest competition is actually from previous entries of the same title. Now you do also get games like BattleBit Remastered, which actually I'm going to be playing in about 10 minutes for doing a playtest. But you got games like that, which, I mean, it's a tiny group of developers made it, and all due respect to it, it's really good. I'm not taking anything away from BattleBit Remastered, but if you look at it graphically, I mean, obviously that makes it easier to make for a smaller team, so it's great. I'm glad they went down that route. But if you think this is probably the biggest competition and it's drawing big numbers, considering that those graphics will put off a load of players and it's still being able to draw really good numbers, I think that screams that the community is just dying for a Battlefield competitor or a proper Battlefield game. And you also see it with the comparisons we get with Battlefield from games that are kind of nothing like Battlefield when you dig down into them. Like World War III has been compared with Battlefield. I think there was another one like CrowZ, whatever it is, compared with Battlefield. Now these games were like nothing like it, but everyone's kind of wanting to find the next Battlefield. When you've got that kind of environment and you're wanting to play a Battlefield style game, and you're also wanting to play something that's relatively new and still being developed and progressed, then you kind of have to go down the 2042 route. So all that says to me that the supply is so low and the demand is pretty high that you can actually just get like an unrealistic view of what the state of a game is. You can think this game is really good because there's nothing really to compare it to that's new. And I've also heard the question be asked that whether if Battlefield 2042 was independent from the Battlefield franchise, how would it be viewed then? And of course it'd be viewed differently. You view everything relative to previous entries of the title. And this time around, that is kind of how I've been approaching 2042, and I think that's added to my enjoyment. I kind of see it as separate to the Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4. I certainly don't get the same feeling of Battlefield moments in 2042 as I did in the previous titles. So treating it as something almost independent has definitely added to my enjoyment. But then with that kind of thinking and that kind of approach to the game, there's no way I could ever say Battlefield is back, because it really does pale in comparison to previous Battlefields at the moment. It's definitely better than it was on release, in particular gunplay, which is what I've been enjoying the most. It seems like they've drastically reduced the bloom effect on the weapons which they had when the game first released. For whatever reason they decided to reintroduce that after Battlefield 5, which I think had the best shooting mechanics, but now that they've got rid of it or at least toned it down, the gunplay is significantly more satisfying. So where does 2042 go from here? Well, starting with the good, I know they are working on adding in more cover elements to a lot of the maps, and to be honest, maps are a big issue with the game. They're just not particularly good, the new ones they've made. So working on improving that I think will make a big difference, to be honest. I think in August we're getting some updates to certain maps, maybe just one, where they're adding Kaleidoscope, I think it is, where they're adding in more cover elements. But I think a bit of a shame is, and now I do like the ambition that it's gone to 128 players. I think it can work if the map's right and you set up the game mode correctly, but it's a bit of a shame that they then can't use, with 128 players, they then can't use the 64 player maps from Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4 or whatever, Bad Company 2, because we know with things like Battlefield 4 they had a DLC that was just pretty much the old maps, and they were really fun to go back and play on, and Battlefield 2042 really needs to draw on those old maps because they're so much better than what they've got currently, but they can't really use them on the 128 player game modes because they've got set modes like kind of events where it's going to be for a period of time, it's 64 players on different maps across Battlefield 3, Bad Company 2 and the latest Battlefield. You're forced to play 64 player Conquest on 2042 maps, which aren't the best at the best of times, but especially with 64 players they really struggle. So but yeah, it's basically just a bit of a shame that they can't easily use those older maps, because I think that would make quite a big difference to how this game is perceived. So all in all, there's a fair amount of work for them to do, in my opinion, before they can get to a stage where I would say Battlefield is back. And honestly, personally, I do hope that this game does improve. I hope that we do get to a Battlefield is back kind of moment down the line. But I'm also pretty nervous just from the approach that I've seen them take, and maybe this is I guess this is kind of par for the course when it comes to the PR people for gaming companies, but they just seem to have just taken very little responsibility, and it makes me nervous that if the game does end up doing well, that they'll continue down making some of those terrible decisions. If the next Battlefield has got specialists, I just don't know what to make of that. I'm gonna have to start up a game company and make it competitive to this, because there's no way I could handle if Battlefield kept making the same mistakes. And replay this video when I'm playing the new Battlefield in however many years time, saying, oh, I'm actually enjoying it. Sponsored by Battlefield. Anyway, I'm going to close this one out. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you leave a like and also think about subscribing. Cheers guys.